this time. Here's where you go when it looks like the rain won't end. Don't cry. I'll give you tomorrow. Let me be the one to share it with. And each day that follows, 'cause we only have one life to live.
Well, guys, hey, my name is Matt. Welcome to a special day it's called Slick, A Better You. I know it's been a while since I've done a show, and I'm glad that I've been able to put a couple of shows together. And today is going to be a special tribute to One Life to Live. I got a special guest coming aboard. We're going to talk a bit about One Life to Live. And before I bring him on, I hope he's enjoying this. I put a little montage of One Life to Live moments from over the years. I was kind of biased, I guess, because a lot of it involves Todd and them, but he was one of my favorite characters. But before I bring my guests on, I have a little montage of some moments from One Life to Live over the years.
Mo? Gigi?
Noel? Rex?
I have nothing to say.
Daniel killed Paul Kramer because Kramer was blackmailing him.
Blackmailing him with what?
He's saying Coulson's gay, Nora, and the son of a bitch killed Jen. Keep quiet.
Give it up.
Keep counting. 2, 3.
I can't go on hiding who I am anymore. I'm gay.
I used to think that there wasn't a woman alive that could make him want to settle down.
I am going to tear you apart. Don't you hit me.
And thou art consecrated unto me as my wife.
And thou art consecrated unto me as my wife.
Sorry, sweetheart. We just got to drinking and talking, and time just got away.
Yes, I'm very aware of the fact that you've been drinking. And if I have you to thank for that, sir, or if you are under the impression that you can continue the party here, I'm terribly sorry you cannot.
No, well, ma'am, I'm sure sorry I led this gentleman down the path of sin.
Those whom God hath joined together, let no one put asunder.
I'm pregnant. I'm going to have a baby, darling.
It's not going to work. I mean, she hates me so much, Court. She's not going to stop until she turns you completely against me.
Honey, that is never going to happen.
Yeah, not if we elope right now. Then she won't be able to do or say anything to stop us. Am I too late?
Candy promised me that the sky would light up as soon as Tina cut the wedding cake.
You get to ask if anybody had any objections. Speak up. Huh? Because I got a whole lot of reasons these two shouldn't be getting married.
Shut up, boy. Asa, you haven't done it again.
That ain't gonna throw you out of here.
Hey, Delilah, listen, you haven't said I do yet. Now, you still got a chance to back out of this mistake.
Asa?
Renee, this is all my fault. I turned to Asa in a moment of weakness, and he was kind enough
Darling,
to lend...
we know why you're here and what you're doing.
Sarah?
Zach. Hey, buddy. Long time no see. I like the new face. Who did the work?
Did you break out?
Nope. Unlike you, I served my full sentence. Oh, not to worry. Time flies when you're having fun.
This man is not Todd Manning. I am.
Oh, my God.
I know that was kind of long, but that was just some moments from one through this past, a lot of moments. And I'm about to introduce my guest. The guest today, he was a director and cameraman wanted to live. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bruce Cooperman. Hey,
hi. Hey, Matt. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I know that was kind of long, but I hope you liked the whole throwback.
Oh, it was great. It actually brought some tears to my eyes. Both his funny moments and his sad moments for the wonderful actors who have passed, and just thinking real quickly about our relationships and all, through all the mostly good times and, some crazy times. But that was really great to see.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard to pick and choose a little bit because, One Life to, and you can probably say this because you worked on One Life to Live. One Life to Live was a little different from like Guy and Light or some of the other shows where they had like a common base cast. One Life to Live changed cast a lot, and a lot of people have come on that show. And it for me putting that together, it was hard. 'Cause I was like, should I put this in? Should I put this in? Because there was so many big moments for One Life to Live,
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, you see the character of Todd, with Roger Howarth playing him, and then Trevor St. John, and then Roger came back, and they had to write all this in. So kind of wacky, but it's a soap opera, so anything can happen.
Yeah, I know. I have some souvenirs to show you. I have a soap digest from 96. Wow. And here's Patrick and Marty.
Oh yeah.
Let me see. I have another one from 98. Okay. And this is during the whole Georgie storyline.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah. And the last souvenir I have, which was a big tribute for me when they had in Baltimore, was One Night to Live. It ended. The magazine tribute.
Right. I think I have that one somewhere also.
Yeah. So, and I meant to told you this, but I tell my guests, if you have any questions for me, you're welcome to ask. I'm an open book as well, even though I'm interviewing you. But thanks for coming aboard. How did you get into directing, though?
Well, I was a cameraman on the show for 15 years, and which was a childhood dream of mine. And not, when I was just go through this real quick, but when I was 10 years old, my older brother used to take me to Rockefeller Center in Manhattan. And that's where they used to tape a lot of the game shows. This is way before your time. But like the original Jeopardy, and just even as a 10 or 11, 12-year-old, I was fascinated by the lights and the cameras and all that. And I knew I wanted to do something. So anyway, I became a cameraman, and fortunately was assigned to One Life to Live. And that 15 years I did that. Mm-hmm. And the hours that we worked were very, very long. And it was 5 days a week, 16-hour days, plus the commuting. At the time I lived in New Jersey. So, it was hard, just a real long day. And I got burned out, and I went up to our then executive producer, who was Susie Bedso Horgan, and I sat down with her and I said, either I'm gonna, or I have to do something else. And I said, I really don't want to leave the show because I love it.
Right.
She said to me, she said, did you ever think about directing? She said, you've been on the show a long time. The actors really like you and you know the story. And she said, I think you would be great at it. And we'll start you off slow. And, I did like 3 scenes. I remember my first 3 scenes of directing were with Cord, John Loprino, and Clint Ritchie. And John Loprino and I were best friends at the time. We used to hang out on the weekends with our wives, and our kids were around the same age, and barbecue, and of course, had to have a couple of beers while you're barbecuing. So I was fortunate that my first directing was with John and Clint, like I say, and it went well. And a couple of weeks later, I did some more, and then I got 6 scenes, and they gave me more and more. And eventually, after about a year that I was doing full episodes, plus still being a cameraman, I got a call upstairs to the executive producer's office, who was then Maxine Levinson. And she told me that one of the directors was leaving. And she said, would you have any interest in becoming a full-time director? And I was like, nah, okay. I really had to think about it for a long time. It took about 3 seconds for me to answer her.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I did that for 16 years until the show went off the air.
Wow. So I was going to say, you kind of been there since almost day one, pretty much. Like
I was on the show for 31 of the 43 years that it was on.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I've seen Kristen Alderson from a little whatever she started 5-6 years old to become a beautiful, wonderful actress, beautiful young woman, and things like that. And
yeah.
So
yeah, I got a buddy who has because he didn't know I watched One Life to Live at the time, and when we found out we both did, he had a mean crush on Star. He was like, that's my baby right there. And I'm like, but dude, because this was in like 2004, so I don't know how old Kristen was at the time. And I said, but dude, we're like a little older than her, and
right.
I don't know, but he was in love with her, So, and it's hard for me to pick who my crush was, because I loved all the women on there, even Erica Slacek and Robin Strasser, both of them.
My goodness, beautiful inside and out, both of them. Really, they especially Erica was, just the most professional person you can ever. I'm just trying to. The most professional person you can ever work with. She knew her lines and his lines and her lines, and she knew everybody's lines. And as far as camera blocking, asking her to go over here or go over here, I always tell people, you could say, Erica, would you mind on this line going over in the corner and standing on your head? And she would say, sure.
Yeah.
She was great.
Yeah, I actually, one of my DVDs over there, I have an interview she did back in 2006 about her time over the years of One Life to Live. And
okay.
Yeah, I always considered her kind of like the queen pillar of the show, because she was one of the originals who was from the beginning,
right,
all the way to the very end, even when it went online.
Yes.
Yeah. But I got hooked on the show back in 2002.
Okay.
And I don't remember what month or day, but it was around the time before Mitch was coming back to the show. And it was the usual, Todd and Blair was fighting, and they kissed, and she slapped him saying, "You kissed me." And he said, "But you kissed me." And it was one, I was a fan of them, but it was like a love-hate thing during that time. And I found it a little weird that because Sam Rappaport was Todd's friend, that they paired him and Blair together.
Right.
But I was a fan of theirs, and I was disappointed when Roger had left that year in 2003, and then Trevor came on, and Roger went to As the World Turns. I was watching that too, and I kept up with all that, and then out of nowhere, World Turns ended. Roger came back, and I'm like, well, how are we going to explain this two Todd scenario?
Right.
Yeah, so I began taping the show back in 2004, and I taped it all the way till the end. Some tapes I did throw away because I got some on DVD, but I do have a few saved. But like I said, I was a fan of Born to Live from the beginning. I think that was the first. Port Charles was the first ABC show I watched, then One Life, and then the others.
Okay.
But I love the show, and there was just something about Mitch Lawrence. I mean, you hated the guy, but there was just something about how Roscoe, he passed. He recently passed not that long ago,
yes,
but something about how he played that role. It was just, what is your memories of him?
Oh boy, he was so good at being so bad.
Yeah,
and he took the character and the work very seriously. He was constantly rehearsing and memorizing his lines and always willing to talk about what was coming up. And I have goosebumps because he was great. But then on the other end, we used to go to Yankee games together.
Mm-hmm.
A whole group of us. Our stage manager Alan Needleman was a huge Yankee fan, and he had some connections with the Yankees, and he always got us tickets. And a whole group of us, the actors and whoever wanted to go, we would go to Yankee games, and he was just so much fun. And it's a shame, And again, seeing the montage that you put together, Phil Carey and Clint Ritchie are gone now, and Pat Elliott. She was such a wonderful, wonderful person. And,
I loved Renee. She was one of my favorites on the show, and not that it's your fault. I'm not fading you, but I was disappointed in the later years when she kind of faded away, and then she kind of stopped coming back on. I was like, man, I loved Renee. I mean, they could have paired her with Nigel or just with somebody. I mean, they could have did something with her, But
Nigel,
I used to mock his accent. The actor who played Nigel,
right, Peter Bartlett. Yeah, he was so great at. Every time they gave him more than serving Asa a drink, it was just such a pleasure. And he was very, very funny, and certainly lightened the mood on the set.
Yeah,
But
Asa for me, Phil Carey, I started knowing about more of the show in 2003, even though I started watching in 2002 because I was still at elementary school at the time. But he was one heck of a guy, and I used to love how he would always say, "What the hell is going on?" Or Bo would call him Paul. And I'm like, why are you calling this man Paul instead of father or pops? He would call him Paul, that Southern thing.
Right.
And it's interesting how it's a photo. I don't have it, but you probably know it. It's a photo of him, Bo, and Clint Ritchie with the cowboy hats.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of Dallas a little bit. They had that. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what they tried to do, make Asa the family mogul, and have his sons competing against each other, or certainly with the citizens of Landview, and so great memories. The three of those, when they were in scenes together, it was always hard to keep a straight face, especially in rehearsals. And taping, they try not to mess up lines, but if they did, they would just laugh at each other, and then all the camera guys and stage managers and everybody would start to laugh, and it was just it was great. It was a great time.
It's also funny how he was married to so many women over the years.
Right.
Olympia and Samantha, which was in the clip, and Delilah, that clip of Bo coming in, and
sure,
and Becky Lee and Pam and Blair.
Right.
Now the Asian Blair.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, if you don't mind, I just share a quick.
Sure.
Right, that was Mia Korf who played Blair until Cassie Wesley DePaiva after they got married, and she came on, and I remember it was a big scene in a church. Asa had died for the 15th time, and they were showing each character and a flashback of their encounters with Asa. And when it came time to show Blair, the camera zooms in on Blair, who again was Cassie, and the clip they played was Mia Korf as Blair. And we come back out after the clip, and I'll never forget the face that Cassie made. She was like,
right.
What's that about? And it was just so funny. Funny.
I taped that episode because Soapman had did like a one through a tribute, and they aired that episode, and because I remember watching that, like, how they gonna explain that?
Right.
Yeah. I do have a clip here I'm gonna air. I don't know if you remember this. This is one with let me see, I got a couple of clips here. Well, this is one with Mitch. We were talking about Mitch earlier. This is a bad side to Mitch. Let me say, this is one from 1985.
Any minute, I'm gonna be here. What do you think you're doing?
I want to put my arms around you. At first I was shocked, but now I understand. I really do. You did fine. I understand. I really do. You did fine. Yeah, at first I was horrified. You're not gonna give me any money. Not even if you're gonna give me any money. Not even if you know I'm her sister.
I'm right in front. Come on, Mitch. You miss me?
You really thought I'd cut you? That I would even want to be with you to love you after what you did? No, you just get out of here. Get out of here now. You stay away from me, and I will not tell anyone what you did. I understand. Don't come near me. Don't come near me. She's somewhere on Jane.
Wow. Yeah. So good at being so bad.
Yeah. What was your working relationship like with the producers? I know it was a lot of producers over the years. I know Paul Rausch was the 80s producer.
Right.
And when I joined when I was watching this show, Gary Tomlin was producer, and then Frank Valentini. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a cameraman while Paul Rausch was there, and he was no nonsense. Again, speaking of people who we've lost, he also passed a couple of years ago. But no nonsense, and I remember the time. I don't remember. There were two young male actors. I saw him in a clip, and I didn't remember his name. And they both started the same day, and one was doing a lot better job than the other. But the other character, they were going to take that character a lot further. Mark Philpott was the actor. That just popped in my head.
Who did he play? Mark Philpott.
Sanders. You remember Elizabeth Sanders, the older woman?
Jamie Sanders.
Right. There you go. Good. I wouldn't have been able to sleep tonight because I would have. But one day after dress rehearsal, Paul Rausch comes over to the floor and calls both of these young actors over and he says, from now on, you're this character and you're this character. And whatever we taped, we taped. We didn't do anything over again. And Jamie Sanders went on to be on the show for a couple of years, and the other kid, just faded into the sunset. But that was something that I remember that Paul did. And not that people were scared of him, but again, where you stood, with Paul. Yeah. And Gary Tomlin also, great guy, and also no nonsense. Come in, do your work, go home. And Frank. I worked with Frank when Frank first started. He was a production assistant up in the office. And then he became an assistant to the directors, an assistant to the executive producer, and then a stage manager, and then a producer, and then he went on to direct, and then he became the executive producer.
Yeah.
And now he's the executive producer of General Hospital. Talk about somebody who really knows their stuff. He's, very talented.
You mentioned Jamie Sanders. That was another villain from One Life to Live's past.
Right. Right.
I don't know a lot of the episodes with him in it, but I know he did a lot of out there stuff, kind of like Mitch Lawrence. He was, and that clip I shown when Herb shot him. I was like, oh, so they finally ended him, because I seen some clips of him kidnapping, like in the clip Cassie, and he was tangling with, I think, Gabriella at one point. That actor I don't know well, but that character, he was another one of them classic villains from back in the day.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, another good bad guy.
I did have one guest on my show from One Life to Live. Don't know if he worked with him or not. He played Nash.
Forbes March. Yeah.
I told him in the interview that I was not fond of Nash because I was a huge Antonio and Jessica fan. Because Antonio, that was my boy. Him, Todd, and later John McBain, Michael Easton, and Bo. All of them I liked. And Antonio and Jessica, that clicked. And then they added Nash when they was doing the Just Test story. Right. I was like, I ain't feeling it. But and I told him, unfortunately, when I did get hooked on him, this happened to him.
Are you okay?
You're a fraud. You're a fraud, and I knew it. I felt it. You're a fraud, and I knew it.
But you saved my wife's life, didn't you? You saved my wife's life. And I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe you had his wrong.
Maybe you had his bad. You're a fraud, and now I've lost my vineyard.
You dirty little tramp. You dirty little tramp. Now your sister has lost her home because of you. Your sister has lost her home.
Oh no!
Yeah. When I told him, when I finally got hooked on that character, he was growing on me. They killed him off.
Yeah. And I see John Brotherton there.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot who he played, but what a nice guy. He was great. And we used to play a lot of golf together, he and I.
Yeah, he was Jared Banks on the show.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Since I hit 30, I just I don't remember.
Oh my gosh! Now you sure now? You look like you're still in your 20s, man. You look like
yeah. Must be the light that's coming in on the side. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, I got the big question to ask you, because I am a filmmaker as well, and I ask people all the time. What was that like being a director and a cameraman? I mean, a day-to-day job directing a soap that only has maybe one, at least two takes at the most. But I know there was a blooper reel once on YouTube, but directing a show with just one take, and you got, then the commercial breaks in between. Like, what was that process like?
Well, as far as directing, we used to get what was called rundowns, and we used to get those about 3 weeks ahead of time, and it was just a basic synopsis of each scene from that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we can get an idea of what the writers are looking for, and what was going to happen. And then we got what was called an unedited script, which was in regular script form, but it was very basic.
Right.
And then the writers would edit them, and then we got an edited script of the same episode until about 8 days or so before that episode was going to be taped. Then the directors got the final script.
Okay.
And from then, we read the script and vision how we would shoot it, and understand the scene, and then put in camera shots according to, again, each director's vision. We had about 6 contract directors because there was a lot of work that went into shooting one episode. So
right.
Like I say, there were 6 of us, and we rotated. We each did one episode a week, which doesn't sound like much, but it was really it was a lot of work. And a lot of meetings and speaking with the producers, and the actors would also get their scripts about a week in advance, and most of the time they looked at the script, and if they didn't like anything, they would call the producers. Hey, this doesn't make sense to me, and the producers would either change things or explain to them, well, in another 2 weeks, this is going to happen. So that's this is setting up for that,
right.
Things like that. And in the day of shooting, we would usually be in at 7 a.m, and there was a room downstairs in the basement of the building where the studio was called the rehearsal room.
Mm-hmm.
Just a big room, and we would go through each scene, and the director would give the actors their blocking, which is all their movements.
Right.
On this line, you're trying to avoid, you're telling this person a lie, so maybe you don't want to be face to face to them. So on this line, turn and walk over here to the desk, and we'll see that you're not telling the truth, but your back is turned to the other character. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's all visual interpretation of the scenes and all. And then after we would go through the whole script with all the actors, then we would go up to the set, usually around 9:30, and do what's called camera blocking. And that's where all the camera people and the audio people and the lighting people, everybody would see where the actors are going to be and go through all the movements. And, if there were any problems, we would fix them. And then after lunch, we would start to tape the scenes. And, it's on videotape. So if there were technical mistakes or the actors forgot their lines, either you go back to the beginning of the scene, or you could do what's called a pickup. You pick it up in the middle of the scene until the producers were happy. Usually, like you say, 1 or 2 takes. And okay, let's move on to the next scene. And then all the scenes that are in, like, the Lord Library, if we would do those first. After we're done, then we move to a different set, the Palace Restaurant or Roadies. You remember the big bar, Roadies. There was always people meet to eat and drink there, and and then we would go like that until we were done. So
yeah, meet and drink there. I remember watching episodes. I'd be like, these guys drink beer constantly. I didn't see Michael Easton pick up so much beer talking with Natalie or Evangeline.
Right. Exactly.
Do you have any memories of him? I know he came on after Port Charles that ended in 2003. Michael Easton.
Michael Easton, really, what a pleasure to work with. Also, big Yankee fan, and he used to go to games with us also, and it was always fun to hang out with him because he was a really cool guy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and also took his craft very seriously. And I remember he hardly forgot his lines. You know, he was always good with his lines. And as far as movement, he and Trevor St. John, they knew that the executive producers and the producers wanted the directors to keep the actors moving. You know,
Right.
unless of course you're seated in a restaurant or something, because you know unless you had to go to the restroom or leave, why would you stand up? But you know, in just say like Todd's Penthouse, you know, Trevor always said to me, he and I, we used to play golf a lot, and he always said to me, I know you guys want us to move, but just all I'm asking is just give me a reason, you know, a good reason. Just don't say, okay, I'm going to move over here. I'm going to go over to the desk and just stand there for no reason because they want movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always ask the prop people for some mail.
Right.
Put mail on the desk. This way it gives him a reason to go over and he can do the scene looking through the mail. But he was always so happy about that. You know, you always say, at least you gave me a reason to come over to the desk. And Michael Easton was the same way. Just, you know, he understood the medium and the process, and he would also do whatever you asked him to do. So great memories of working with both those guys.
Yeah, you know, when Trevor came on, he was Walker Lawrence first,
right?
And
right,
because I remember knowing there was rumors that he was going to be Todd. You know, like I said earlier, Roger went to one As the World Turns at this point, and then Trevor came on, and I didn't know Trevor. I know he did a movie called with Ice Cube called Higher Learning back in the '90s, but there was something about his acting style that I liked, and then when they built him as Todd, you know, that was something else. And you know, him and Michael would have these, you know, I know their characters didn't like each other, but it seemed like they always, I could watch an episode, and I had the clip on. I don't know what happened to it. Oh, here it is. It's a clip here. It seemed like to me they wanted to laugh at certain times, even though they hate each other. But it's like, you know, because this is a clip I found from 2007.
Give me a pillow. I'll sleep on the floor. You guys can have the bed. Sleep on the floor. You guys can have the bed.
Why don't you make Blair stick in the tub?
Why don't you make Blair stick in the tub?
Where'd you get that sandwich?
So you got yourself a room. So you got yourself a room.
Hold the pan a little more for it than you did for
Hold
yours.
the pan a little more for it than you did for
There's
yours.
his librarian down at the bar.
There's his librarian down at the bar.
Roger. Easiest thing I did all week.
Easiest thing I did all week. Now give me the key. Now give me the key.
Oh, I paid for both those things. The key and the sandwich.
I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to ask you
And
again.
consider this.
And consider this.
I support the death penalty.
I support the death penalty.
I tell you, you know how to make a man
I tell you,
feel
you know how to make
unloved.
a man
I thought
feel
you and I meant more to each other than this.
I thought you and I meant more to each other than
I
this.
think you're fantastic.
All right, I'll even give you a choice of roommates. All right, me or Blair? I'll give you a choice of roommates.
Whoa, now,
Me
Blair.
or Blair? Whoa, now, Blair.
We leave in the morning. Don't keep me waiting.
We leave in the morning. Don't keep me waiting.
Knowing how the two of them were in real life, you could see in the scene, like you say, they wanted to crack up and they wouldn't look at each other in the eye. They would always look down or something. Because if they look at each other in the eye, they're going to start to crack up.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I picked up with watching soaps is you can tell if somebody's getting along with his work well, because if you're taping and it's airing, if they're making eye contact, but if they're constantly looking down or doing this and that, it's like they're trying not to laugh. They're trying to get through that scene because they got one take to do it, and that's an example of that. And and the scene when Marty came back, when Susan Haskell came back, and she was in Todd's penthouse, that was and John ended up beating him up, unfortunately, but that was some moments I wanted to live. I remember from 2008.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What? Well, I guess that's hard for you to pick too. Do you have a moment that stands out for you?
It's so hard, after 31 years on the show to pick out 1 or 10 moments, but really, I think my favorite person to work with was Bob Woods, who played Bo, because you talk about nice guys, and when he would mess up, he just made everybody crack up along with him, and I know I'm not giving you the answer like for one storyline, but I remember I remember his wedding, Bo and Nora's wedding, when they had Little Richard on.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to be part of that. And I remember Asa and Renee and Cord and Tina got married in a church, and I was actually picked to be one of the cameramen, and we did that at a church in Manhattan. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
One of Ace's, 15 weddings, of course, but it's really so hard. Now that you mentioned with Mitch Lawrence, and Nathan Purdie, played Hank Gannon.
Yeah.
He was, especially when Nathan and Bob Woods were in scenes together. Rarely did they get through a scene without cracking up, and we had to stop because they were such good friends, and they would always try to make each other laugh, and and Timothy Stickney, speaking of Canada, RJ, he was awesome. He was a really wonderful actor, and really, only good things,
Yeah.
And you mentioned before about Kristen Alderson, and seeing her from a little kid, like I said before, to grow up into a young woman, and it's just Robin Strasser. What a pleasure. You really can't beat her acting wise, and her and Erica when they had scenes, Vicky and Dorian together. You just can't beat the two of them.
Yeah.
So
those two, like I said earlier, those like in the clip when Vicky's personality came out and threw Dorian down the stairs.
Right.
That was those two always had that bond, and I love that. And for me, I always said the thing I loved about Dorian too was when she worked with David Vickers.
Yeah, that's a good smile. Yeah. Tuck Watkins was what a character.
Yeah,
but in a good way.
Right. And RJ, I used to always say it's ironic. Nothing bad against him, but I used to always say it's ironic they never killed RJ off. He was so bad at times. I know in the early years in the 90s he was really bad,
right?
And he kind of mellowed in the later years. But I used to always call him the dreadlock brother because he was the only one with the dreads, and he always looked serious when he, But I loved RJ. He was one of them. I was glad when they brought him and Hank back for a visit toward the end of the show's run.
Right.
They were dynamics. I actually got a funny clip here between him and Todd that I crack up a lot every time I see it.
You watch it. That's nice. You shave in the dark?
You shave in the dark?
What's the matter, RJ?
What's the matter, RJ?
You having a bad hair day? No. But I understand you have trouble getting it up in the morning. Oh, I get it. You woke up on the wrong side of the drag.
You woke up on the wrong side of the drag.
I wonder if that was a scripted line from Roger Howarth, or if he made that up on the spot.
I always say, when I interview people from Like to Live and World Turns and now GH, I always gotta ask people, what was it like working with that guy? Because he is so. I know he's kind of shy with interviews, but he's always funny. And when he has lines like that, always would be like they had to cracked up when they were done. Because did he improvise? It's like
A lot of times he did. And the producers, knew that he would do that, but he would improvise in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And if the producers were happy with it, they let it go.
Mm-hmm.
If it was something off color or the censors are not going to let us get away with that, then of course we'd have to reel him in. But and he would always be like, "Hey, I tried."
Yeah. I have to ask you. I mean, I know you weren't. You was the cameraman, but what was your intake when they did the whole two toss story at the end of the show when they brought Roger back? What was your intake on that?
Well, I mean, as a cameraman, I mean, you don't really. You don't have much say in what goes on, of course. But it's just we're actually anxious to see how they, like you said before, when Roger Howarth came back. Okay, what are they going to do now? So
yeah,
and again. It's a soap opera, and I don't have to tell you. People could die 3 times and come back, whether the same character or a different character. So,
man, my reaction in 2009 when y'all brought Mitch Lawrence back after I mean, he died in 2003, and Jessica admitted to killing him, and then he came back after all that time. I was like, how are they going to explain that? She killed him. He died. I was watching that.
Right.
And then he went to jail, and I was so glad when that was one heck of an ending y'all did. Y'all had him and Lindsay and Troy, all the prisoners escaped prison. People were shot, and then they did the whole between heaven and hell kind of thing. But he, that was one heck of an actor,
Yeah.
And I later found out that he did some music after Wanted to Live ended. He was singing,
right?
And his passion really shocked me.
Yes, yeah. He was a very talented musician.
Yeah,
and Eileen Kristen, who played Roxy, she sings. She's still, I see things on Facebook that she's singing at a club or something, and I just thought also, Nora, Hillary Smith.
Yeah.
Also, what a pleasure. What a wonderful, wonderful woman, and really good actress. And the scenes with her and Lindsay when they had the food fight and in the kitchen, and her scenes with Bob Woods were just great.
Yeah, I was so happy when they, I know it's a soap and they have super couples and people break up and get back together, but I was happy when they got back together toward the end and they stayed together. They didn't break up and see get with other people. And they're on my list as one of my favorite Wanted to Live couples.
Definitely.
Yeah, especially that wedding, with Little Richard, and them dancing down the aisle.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I gotta ask, what and I'm sure it's probably the same answer others have told me about, but what was your reaction when Wanted to Live was canceled and ended? Which ironically was the same day All My Children was canceled.
Right. Shock. I think that's really the only word for it.
Yeah.
It's just sad, and but everybody was shocked, and you think those 2 shows were so popular, you thought they would go on for 100 years.
Yeah.
But ABC had other things in mind, and they wanted to put on these other two shows, and one failed, and one was a success until one of the chefs got in a little trouble, and then that show went off the air. So
Yeah.
and it's just sad that back in the heyday in the 80s, there were something like 16 soaps on each day between the three networks,
Mhm.
and now there are only 4. And they were all done. They were all shot out in California, and from what I hear, I still know some people who work on them. It's okay. Let's go. Good. Okay. Next scene. Okay. And cut. And next scene. And next. It's like a factory. It's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
But evidently they're still popular. So God bless them. Hopefully they'll go on for, like I say, another 100 years. And but yeah, it was sad when One Life to Live was canceled, for sure.
I know I was shocked because it's like when Guy in Light and As the World Turns was canceled too. It was like these shows. You can comment on this if you want, but it was like these shows have been on the air for years. Is what you expect to see, whether you watch soaps or not, because they've been on for years. And it's like I made this statement before to somebody. How do you cancel that? I mean, it's like I know it happens, and there's money problems and ratings as well. But it's like, how do you do that? I mean, you can't just plug in a cook show and another game show, because we had Price is Right and The View and the other stuff on already. But it's like, how do you do that? I mean, it's like, and then you got people who've been on there for years, on and behind the scenes. They're out of work too. So it's like, how do you do that? How do you take off soaps that's been on for years and plug in these other shows? And I know cable took over as well toward the late 2000s and the late 90s, because there was very few channels on back then. Cable blew up, and I guess in a way SoapNet helped the soaps because they would re-air them later in the day with the reruns and all that. But that was kind of my reaction, was like, how do you do that?
I think that it all comes down to one thing, and that's money. Because the soaps were, I know One Life to Live was very, very expensive to produce. Between all the salaries, for the actors and the producers and everybody, plus all the shipping, nobody realizes, when they're done taping for a day, the scenes, the sets that are not being used the next day have to be taken apart and trucked to a warehouse in New York. And, there's a lot of money, and, and then the new sets had to be wheeled in and put together. And, it's like 24, not 24/7, but 24/5. It was 5 days a week, and it just went 24 hours a day. And, and, the ratings, I think that a lot of families had become a 2-income family. So the husband and the wife were working full time. So it used to be, of course, mostly women watched the soaps, and they were home raising kids, and so they had the soaps on, and the ratings were good.
Right.
But, when the economics and things, and you had to have the women go out and work also. That really took away from ratings, and then it's again, the show was so expensive to produce, so the powers to be, all they do is look at the bottom line and how much is this costing, and the millions of soap fans out there and One Life to Live fans, but it just didn't matter.
Yeah,
it was because it was a lot less expensive to put on the shows that replaced All My Children and One Life to Live. And that's all that they, that's really all that they cared about.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It was a big shocker to everybody, including me, and a sad one. And ironically, General Hospital was now the only ABC show, and that's still hanging on and going on. But, I know One Life to Live will continue to prosper and live on. I mean, like you've seen this episode on YouTube and fans still talking about it, and you're in the Facebook group, so you know that fans still talk about One Life to Live. I post photos here and there from time to time, and one fan even just said One Life to Live had better ratings than GH when it canceled. But it's like I said, it was like, how do you do that? How do you just take that off? But
right.
And it was fun when they briefly brought it back online for that brief period when they did. I know it was short, but I always had hoped that maybe one day they could bring it back, even if it's just a half-hour show or for like a reunion movie, to kind of show where the characters are today and what's going on, because there's still so much story left to be told.
Definitely. With all the platforms today, Netflix and Hulu and all, I'm sure somebody would pick it up. I don't understand why, like you say, even make it a half hour.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it would still be very, very popular.
Oh yeah. Plus there's so many actors that, like I said earlier, there's a lot of actors that we haven't seen on TV since One Life to Live ended. I'm sure they'd be happy to represent their roles and come back. It would be I'll be glued to my TV trying to, focus.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah. One thing I didn't bring up, I don't know if you worked with him or not, but I watched in 2002, and he came back briefly as Joey, and then he went on to do Castle on ABC, Nathan Fillion.
Yeah. I'm laughing, fond memories. He was just such a goofball.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, his scenes when they had Joey and Dorian.
Oh man.
And we were all like, what? But it worked because you have good actors, and they were really into it, and it worked.
I remember the first time watching it, when they was in bed together and Vicky walked in on them, and I was like, and I was a little younger when I said this. I was like, now, there's one thing that he's with somebody older than him, but he's also in bed with the woman and it was a nemesis of his mother.
His mother's arch enemy. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what made it so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever thought of that was a great idea.
Yeah.
And the fans just ate it up. They loved it.
I know I did. I mean, when they re-aired that clip, it was like Joey and Dorian, and then the later years when they brought the character back, she always would call him Joe. She never called him Joey like everybody else did.
Right. To keep him, more mature than because Joey sounds like like a kid.
Yeah.
But she That's right. She would always call him Joe.
Yeah. There was two storylines I was going to ask you about that I didn't ask you. The first one, if you was a part of it, was the thing with Todd Powell and Zach and Marty Saybrook back in the 90s.
Oh yeah,
were you a part of that?
Yeah. That was I remember the big rapes, if I could say that, the big rape scene with Marty, which of course, the repercussions of that went on for years, on the show. And but I was a cameraman back then, and I actually didn't work that those scenes were shot on a Saturday, I remember, and I didn't work that day. Yeah, it was like a real closed set type of thing, and they had just the camera people who were involved, and lighting people, and the actors, and the director. I remember Jill Mitwell. She directed that.
Yeah.
But I saw that clip of Zach. Coming back, and
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool when they brought him and Powell back in the later years.
Right.
Unfortunately, they killed off Powell. John put a bullet in him, but that was cool. And it wasn't one of them things where they had to recast the role. I mean, I know the actor that played Powell is now like an attorney or something, so he doesn't act anymore. But
I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he lives out in Wyoming or somewhere out in the Midwest or so.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. A fan just asked. And but before, real quick, I made that look on my face when you said Saturday because I didn't know y'all film weekends. I thought y'all just did Monday.
No, we didn't. Always Monday to Friday, but that was a special, group of scenes that they were doing, and I don't remember why, but they decided to do it on a Saturday.
Right.
But I think that might have been the only time in all my time on the show that we worked on a Saturday.
Right.
So
I got a fan who asked, what was your thoughts of Gabrielle, Fiona Hutchison, and Barbara Luna, and Maria Roberts, Cora's mom?
Oh yeah. That was Fiona was also just such a great person. I words can't describe how I loved working with her, and Barbara Luna. I think that was a little toward the beginning of my time. I guess the mid to later '80s.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I didn't really know who she was, and evidently, she was quite the movie star, and and that's when they brought on Cord, John Loprino, and again, like I said before, that he and I became very good friends, and Clint and Maria.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some of those scenes also.
I guess it was an '80s thing, but whenever I see a clip of the actress who played Maria, I used to always say she had pretty long hair, and she always had that complex as I don't know if she was like a villain per se, but I know she wasn't a Tina fan, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But Cord, John, I was a fan of his. I used to always say when I started watching One Like to Live, I would say, please bring him back full time. And I know he visited here and there toward the end of the run, but I used to say, you got to bring him back full time. We need Cord. He is needed. And I loved his Southern accent, which I guess went with the Buchanan style.
Right.
And I remember the look on. I always laugh at the look on his face where everybody else is when Asa married Alex and she rolled in on the river.
Yeah, I had just thought of that. That's right. When we shot all that in Central Park, which was right down the street from the studio, and I remember Gary Tomlin directed that, and I was a cameraman on that shoot, and that was a lot of fun. And Tanya Walker, who played Alex, was also. She was great. On camera and off.
Right.
And then that makes me remember Tom Christopher, who played Carlo.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Another supervillain.
What a riot. What a riot. Sometimes he took things too far.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get into all that, but and then the producers had to come to the set quite a few times. Tom, we can't do that. This is daytime television. It's not nighttime. But again, really, really, really good memories.
Right. Earlier when you were talking about how you would shoot scenes, I meant to ask you this earlier. So like, let's say you had a scene at the Palace and it was Vicky and Clint talking and Dorian and David and Kelly and Joey. Would y'all like film those scenes like that since y'all had that set already set up, or film it differently based upon who was in that episode?
Well, if it was in the same episode,
Mm-hmm.
no, we just use different parts of the restaurant.
Okay.
You know, like Clint and Vicky would be seated down over here on the left,
Mm-hmm.
and Dorian, whoever, Dorian and David, or would be, further away, and we might have to stop to move cameras and things like that. But once and that was a big set, the Palace Restaurant.
Yeah.
So they tried. That's one of those things to save money. The writers knew, okay, well, that set is going to be up. Let's use it, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Because it took a long time to build the set and to take it apart. You know what I mean? So they would just write in, even if it was a different day in Landview, like I say, on Monday's episode, Vicky and Clint were having dinner. And then on Tuesday, here comes David and Dorian. They're
right.
Because again, that set would be up, and it was certainly cheaper to leave it up for a few days than to take it apart and then 3 days later put it back, and so the writers were in on all that also,
right? Because I guess y'all film like maybe 1 or 2 episodes a day.
We did most of the time one. Then we did scenes from another episode, especially in the later years because of that. A big set like the Palace Restaurant, even on just say on a Monday, we would do scenes from Monday's episode, Tuesday's episode, and Wednesday's episode.
Right.
And then for whatever reason, instead of doing it, on 3 separate days, they did it on one day. But for the most part, we did one full episode in one day. And then, like I say, plus whatever, it could be 6 scenes or 10 scenes from other episodes,
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, and a fan when you're talking about Tina and Cord, another Tina and Cord fan. I guess the story with Tina going over the waterfall and then coming back was one of them big moments as well from the 80s. Yeah.
Yes, right. When Cord married Kate.
Marion
Kate
Cross.
Sanders, right. And something when you played that clip before, and I remember Tina walking in with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera goes around, then you see Cord and Kate walking down the aisle. I remember that was my shot.
Word.
I had that of Tina carrying the baby, and then coming around and seeing Cord and Kate stop in their tracks. So that was just a memory.
I'm glad you told me that because I see that clip all the time. And. They did a special on One Night to Live called Daytime Greatest Weddings, and that's one of them. When she walked into the church with the baby, and yeah. And okay, and I remember the other thing I was going to ask you was, were you a part of the show back then when they had the African American clan, which was Holly and Sadie Gray and Ed Hall?
I came in toward the beginning of my career, which was 1981. Sorry.
That was 10 years before I was born. I was born in 91.
Yeah, whatever. So no. I'm just kidding. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Al Freeman Jr. played Ed Hall, and my favorite memory of him, it was some kind of big courtroom scene, and he didn't really have anything to say, but his character had to be there, and he's sitting in the back of the court, and they took a shot of him, and he's like,
wow. Oh my gosh.
That was very, very funny. But
I mean, he must have been working hard that previous day or something, you know. And
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you know, it's hard to pick out, of course, but you sometimes, unless they're doing it real well, you can probably sometimes tell when the actor looks very tired in the middle of a scene. Sometimes, or maybe it's just a part of the scene that they're doing. But
right.
There were times when Trevor would have a scene, and I go, he must have been very tired because I can't hardly hear him, but he's doing good.
Yeah.
But that's funny though. I mean, I don't know a lot about that era, but from what I've seen on YouTube, that was one of those interesting clans, and he was one heck of a guy on there, Al Freeman Jr.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But you know, and then the actors, you know, years ago when money wasn't such an issue, the actors, especially, you know, mentioned Bob Woods, he would plan all these gags, you know, and if I could just take a minute and share one,
please do.
This was just so funny. I remember one day I was directing, and I was just walking through the studio at lunchtime. Everybody was out to lunch, and up on top of the studio was like a catwalk. You know, like the electricians would use it, you know, for light, to hang lights all the way up high. And I remember I hear some kind of commotion up there, and I look up, and it's Bob Woods is up there. I'm like, Bob, what are you doing up there? And he's like, shh, you'll see later. So later we're taping. It was a scene. I think it was Asa, and I know it was definitely Asa. I think it was Asa and Alex in the restaurant. It might be the Palace restaurant. And it was a very romantic scene. And all of a sudden, in the middle of taping, one of the candlesticks, when they took a shot of Asa, the candlestick went whoop. And Bob Woods was up there. He had tied string, like invisible. I forgot what they call it, but and in the middle of the scene, Bob pulled on the string, and the candle went flying. And Phil Carey was like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" Like he was going to have a heart attack in real life. Just things like that, and you know, we all work such long hours. You had to do something to break up the tension and all. But but as the later years, when everything was, like I say, all about money, you know, you really couldn't fool around like that. So
you know, but it's great that they you know, there were moments like that because, you know, as you said,
yes,
that's okay. Especially if you got a day where you got a scene with two characters and it's a serious moment where they're arguing or crying or a funeral or a wedding, what have you.
Right.
It's great to know that people like someone like Robert will always have gags, or you know, you got to ease the tension somehow. Especially when you're done, it's like you got to.
Another funny thing was that involved Bob Woods and Phil Carey. Asa, character of Asa, was in a coma. I don't remember what you know, one of the many times that Asa was going to die or something. And it was a very quiet hospital scene. Bob Woods had like a 5-page monologue.
Right.
And it was all quiet, and you know, you could hear a pin drop, and Bob is, you know, of course, playing Bo, is pouring out his heart to his father. And like on the 4th page of the dialogue, Phil Carey goes, and you know, we had to stop, and Bob had to do the whole thing all over again.
Oh,
and
man.
He was so mad. But, you know, and of course everybody started to laugh, and then when they saw how upset Bob Woods was, then everybody's like,
I'm sure. I mean, you know, all that dialogue you gotta do.
Do that
all over
it's
again.
It's not an easy thing.
Because y'all didn't pick up where you left off. You had to.
Yeah. So
you know, and it's ironic hearing stories like that from people on the show and directors like yourself, because growing up, I used to say, how do you get by doing so much dialogue to film an hour, even a half-hour show? I mean, how do you do that? I mean, there has to be improvised or make up somewhere, because especially if you got a scene with two characters and it's going on for like 7 or 8 minutes, it's like, how do you do that? How do you have the brain muscle just, that's a lot of lines.
And, Erica Slezak can have 50 pages of dialogue and she never made a mistake.
Right.
And I remember with me marking up one of my scripts, and every once in a while I would try to just pick a character on the page. And on a page, what do you have, like, 4 or 5 or 6 lines? And I would just try to just pick out whatever random character and memorize all of their lines on that one page. I'm like, how did I do this?
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember it was in between scenes with Jessica Tuck, who played Megan,
right,
Vicky's daughter,
mm-hmm.
and Jessica had just started,
right.
And I remember the two of them sitting on the couch in the Lord Library, and Jessica Tuck says to Erica Slezak, "Can I ask you, how do you memorize all these lines?" And Erica said, "It's you do it, and your mind becomes like a muscle. It's muscle memory."
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens that, you read it a few times and it just gets stuck in your head. And I was just always fascinated.
Where was Erica when I did my play? I did a play in 3rd grade, my first time acting, and it was about garbage, ironically. Mm-hmm. And the part I had, one of the problems I had growing up was pronouncing big words. And I had a line and I couldn't pronounce it. So I had a friend. I said, "Can we switch? Because I know your line's better than mine." He agreed to it. The day of the show, he said, "We can't. We got to keep our lines now." I'm like, oh no. Man. So when my turn, I was a kid, to remind you, we're on stage in the gym and everybody's out there on the floor watching us, including the cute girl I had a crush on then. And I get to my part and I'm doing good. And when that one line came up, I couldn't get it. So it took me a second to get it. And then somebody finally came up to help me and we got through it. And we were done. I was like, I ain't doing that again. I told you I couldn't get that word right.
Because you get it into your head that you're not going to remember it. And that's what happened, right?
Yeah. Ironically, years later, when I started putting myself in my own short films, I got better at it, of course. But I still remember that time I was like, I'm not doing this. I can't. That one word, and we're in front of these people now, and they're looking at me, and I'm trying to get it in there. I'm like, I can't. I done told my teacher I can't get it, but it's that kind of go back to what I was saying about soaps. Is like so much dialogue, and I'm sure Erica had the muscle, because especially when y'all did the DID stories with the personalities. That's a lot, Tori, the Nikki Smith, of course, because she came out a lot, and that is something,
Right, and it's not only memorizing Vicky's dialogue, but then you have to remember Nikki Smith's dialogue, and so you're playing 2 characters in one day. That's a lot, but you can't beat her.
Yeah. I remember I interviewed Mark Doran, who played Ben.
Yeah.
He had a lot of memories of Asa, Phil, and Bob, and Erica, and he said the same thing. All of them were phenomenal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. When they did the Ben and Vicky storyline, he loved Erica Slezak and she loved him, and they were so happy with the storyline, and it showed. It showed in their scenes. They were genuinely fond of each other.
Yeah.
And that came out in their acting. It was
Yeah.
Mark Derwin. He was also such a great guy. So funny.
I'll let him know you asked for him. I'm interviewing him next week. Next Monday.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you think of it, please tell him I said hi.
Oh, I will. Most definitely.
Yeah. I just saw him in a show on TV. It was about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I took a picture of the screen and I sent it to Alan Needleman, who was our stage manager, because Alan and Mark Derwin were very friendly also.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent him the picture of Mark on the show.
Yeah. I guess you was on when Judith Light was on back then, weren't you?
That was also at the very, very beginning of my career.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know she was on there and took off, and even Lawrence Fishburne was on there. She was one of the Hall characters. He was on there as a teenager.
Yeah, that was before my time, but I do remember. I do know that he was on.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, you mentioned Tuck Watkins. David Vickers.
Yeah.
What I can't even get the words out. What a character, but again, in a good way. He was so funny, and one of my favorite Tuck Watkins stories. In the lobby of the studio, there was a TV, and they used to show ABC shows all the time. And I remember I was in for a meeting or whatever, and he's standing by the TV. The TV was up high on the wall, and One Life to Live was on, and he was watching himself. And I walk over and I stood next to him, and he looks at me. He says, "Boy, I'm such a good actor." But just goofy things like that just great memories.
They really made David a comedic character toward the end of the show's run, and especially when it was revealed that he was Bo's son.
Yeah, right. Bo. Yeah, one of their. I think Ace's son and Bo and David were brothers.
Yeah, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. Now he's a Buchanan. Because y'all had just brought on what's his he played David's brother Spencer Truman, Paul Satterfield.
Oh, Paul Satterfield, yeah.
He was on. They had just brought him on around the time I started taping the show, and David I liked. It's not that I didn't like him. I liked him, but I grew on him more in the later years when he had all these comedic. The scenes he had with Matthew Eddie Alderson.
Wow, yeah.
Those, he was a funny cat.
Yes, definitely.
And I just thought of somebody else that was on the show. Allison Perkins, another villain.
Yeah.
I think Barbara Garrett was her name. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. She was very, very good, and they brought her back after a few years of not being on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Linda Dano, Ray Cummins.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a weird name, Gretel.
Yeah. And he played the detective John Sykes. John Bulger is his name.
Yeah.
Also, what a great guy. Just also very professional, but. You want to go up and talk to him about baseball, and I'm just anything. He was just always so nice, and
they. I found it interesting how there was so many. Just give me 1 second. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay, had to get my phone. I found it so interesting how they would have the names of the same character over and over again, because before John McBain and Mike Lisa came on, y'all had John Bulger's character, and in the 80s y'all had John Russell. It was like 3 Johns from over the years. I had
right.
And ironically, all of them were cops related.
Yes, yeah. John Martin, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was also he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you work with? I know he was on in the '80s, and I brought him back briefly in the '90s. Did y'all work? Did you work with Michael Zaslow?
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, and then when he got sick, they brought him back on the show, and I remember, he had to use the computer to speak and all. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to know that was cool that they done so much stuff like that, and we're like the first to kind of do it. That was the first to have a character with ALS to write that in the script,
right?
And I don't even think they killed the character off. I know Michael passed, but they didn't kill the character off. But that was that was cool. That's one of the many first things that One Life did. That and political storylines and
right, and the breast cancer storyline with Vicky.
Yeah,
and you showed the clip before with Billy, with the first openly gay character.
Yeah,
especially for a young teenager that he was, with Andrew and Cassie and.
Yeah,
I always had such a crush on the girl, Laura Bonarigo, who played Cassie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We still talk on Facebook all the time, and I always tell her I was so in love with you, and she said I always loved you too.
You should have did. You should have went to Paul Roush or Susie Besso and said, "Look, can you create a character for me so I can be paired with her?"
Yeah.
Because I know Cassie, she married Andrew and they had River in the 90s. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was another character I liked, Andrew, the priest.
Yes.
I think next to Vic, I think he was one of the few sane people on the show. I don't think he got into trouble per se. That character.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Except for when, I think when Andrew got involved with Cassie, there was a whole controversy, on the show, and but it was good. It was good, good storytelling.
Yeah,
and you had good actors who could pull it off. So
yeah. I didn't know a lot about Jessica Tuck, but watching her with Jake back then, they was a super couple.
Right.
Unfortunately, y'all had to kill her off. She died, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And Jake went on to Dr. Quinn.
Right.
And earlier I didn't say nothing, but I was not. And no offense, I was not a strong Roxy fan. Even though I love Eileen, of course, I love Roxy. I was not a strong fan in the beginning, but I loved her scene with another one of my favorites, James DePava, when they paired her with Max.
Yes.
Though she had a lot of funny lines, and when they did the whole thing with Natalie being Vicky's daughter, Jessica not, but then Jessica is. I liked Roxy, nothing against the actress. She just wasn't one of my. I was hooked on Todd and John and Antonio and RJ and and David, who played Christian on the show.
Yes,
brother. Yeah.
And he's married to Melissa Fumero, who was just finished her 8-year run on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
God, I loved her on Want to Live. She was one of my crushes.
Also.
God, I loved her Want to Live. I loved her so much, and I was so surprised when they made her kind of bad at the end. But she was with Rex,
right?
And then they brought on Gigi, Rex's ex,
right?
Adriana kind of went a little bad at the end, but the character, the actress, man, I had a crush on her.
Oh boy. Oh boy, yeah.
So many people.
He was great, and then David Fumero was also just such a great regular guy.
Mm-hmm.
Also just real good memories of working with him.
I used to envy him because I would look at him with these muscles and the tight shirts. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
I want to be like that.
Yeah. I friends with Melissa on Facebook, and throughout the years that she when she was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'd always write to her, You're the most beautiful woman on television. But don't tell David because he'll beat me up.
Yeah. I loved her, and I watched her work on Brooklyn Nine-Nine because she was on there, and of course Terry Crews was a popular actor on there. She was with him. I didn't see that when it ended because I didn't even know it had ended. But in the very beginning, I was hooked, and I was like, "Uh-oh, now she's playing the cop now."
Right.
Yeah, it's
she did very well with comedy. She was very, very good on that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, I have enjoyed talking with you today. It's been a blast, reminiscing. I hope we can do this again. Talk some more.
That would be great. I really enjoyed it, Matt, and thank you for having me.
No problem. And before I let you go, I got one last clip I'm going to show you I didn't show earlier. This is one opening credits that the show had, and you probably on during that time. But this is another one of my favorites. Here it is right here. I used to call that the porn opening because it's just,
That's right. And I remember everybody like, who are these people?
Right. Because y'all went from having the opening in the 80s with People Bryson with all the character faces.
Oh, yeah.
Which was dynamic. People Bryson at the time.
Yes, definitely.
And then y'all came with this wine and the two maker, and I'm like, what pornography opening is this? And y'all kept it for 3 years before y'all got the blue open and with the cast back in it again. I was like, what is this?
Right.
But I loved it, and it was cool, except for some reason when I see One Life to Live with that credit, I just think of that era, and I think of Home Improvement for some reason and those ABC shows at that time. Yeah, but Wanted to Live with something. But Bruce, thank you for coming aboard. I definitely will tell Mark you said hello when I talk to him.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And we'll stay in touch on Facebook. On Facebook, Want to Live group.
Absolutely.
And real soon I'll reach back out to you and we'll talk some more.
That would be great. And thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
No problem.
Like I say, I've said it 100 times, but a lot of good memories.
Absolutely. And like they said, you only have one life to live.
I never heard that before. No. Thank you, Matt. You be well, okay?
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Take care.
You too.
All right.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in and watching today of Want to Live. It was a blast talking with Mr. Bruce Cooperman, director of Want to Live. And wanted to, I always talk about Guiding Light on this show, but I love the other shows. And One Life to Live was one of my favorites. And what a blast. And you only have one life to live. Join me next Monday as I have Mark Doran and many others from Guiding Light come aboard as we go into a Guiding Light tribute. And I have a special guest coming on board. I hope y'all get ready for that one. And I hope the fans who watched really enjoyed it. And till next time, y'all stay blessed and stay well, okay? Thank you.